Hey, my name is Jesse Spain, and this is my video on the awareness wheel of self-talk for the communication class at WPC. The issue I will be explaining is a conflict that I went through last year that negatively impacted me emotionally for quite a while, and still today, when I think about it, the resentment comes up and I get to relive the conflict, and I have to work through it over and over sometimes. So the backstory is that I worked for a culturally specific treatment center for about 7 years. This program served primarily Native American clients, and at the site I was working at, I had worked at several different sites, but at this particular site that I was working at, we got a new program director who was non-Native, and in my opinion was not culturally sensitive to the needs of our Native clients or our Native staff. One day in a staff meeting, she had made a new policy change that I believed was against Native American values, and I spoke up in this meeting and voiced my concern and my opinion and told her directly that it was not a culturally appropriate policy and that I disagreed with it. About 2 weeks later, I was called into her office and was given what I would find out was a written warning. So here's the process I went through. I walked into the office, and this is what I noticed. Seated at the table was my direct supervisor and the program director and the head of HR. My supervisor is Native, and the head of HR is also Native. And so the sensory data is that I saw everybody seated at the table with a single piece of paper in front of them and another piece of paper placed in an empty chair that I assumed was for me. And so I sat down. My thoughts thinking to myself, oh shit, this isn't good. What the F is going on here? And my emotions were anxious, fearful, my heart was racing, I was nervous, I felt betrayed, I felt cheated and challenged and threatened, and felt kind of angry. My wants were that I wanted my direct supervisor to be supportive and to have my back. And I wanted them to realize that I am right. I wanted to feel like I was being heard, and I wanted the HR director to agree with me, and none of that happened. The actions, part of me wanted to quit right there on the spot. I wasn't happy. I was feeling confused. I couldn't think straight. I felt like I was being ganged up on, and that I couldn't even find the right words to defend myself, which was very frustrating for me because I'm usually very articulate, and in this moment I couldn't even put words together. So I'm listening, and I'm worrying, and I'm in disagreement. This put into motion for the future action. My future action was that I knew that I was no longer going to work there. I needed to come up with a plan because the values of the organization were no longer lining up with my own personal values that I had been raised with and that I thought the organization was about, or they were about those values for a long time. And so this put into action me writing my letter of resignation a few months later. My future action, it turns out, my future action, it turns out, was the best decision that I could have made for me. Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I'm in a much better place. I realized that because of the trust between my direct supervisor had been destroyed and I felt betrayed, I knew that that relationship wouldn't be the same. I committed to my future action plan eventually. This commitment to my future action plan eventually led me to my current job position, where my confidence has been restored as a counselor, and I learned a lot from the whole experience, and through that a lot of growth occurred, and this confirmed my belief in the natural law that conflict precedes clarity, and that for any change or growth to occur, we first must go through a struggle. And it was a huge struggle for me for a long time, and to be honest about it, I still struggle with it sometimes because I worked with this supervisor for 7 years, and when you really think that someone has your back and then they turn against you, it's hard. I've had to take a lot of look at my part in the whole situation, and I realized that maybe a staff meeting in front of other people probably wasn't the best place to tell her how I felt. I should have done it directly just with her. But live and learn. Live and learn. How I felt through this process. At first I tried to do it a couple times and it's like I couldn't do it. So I wrote it all out, and that really helped, and it actually felt really good writing. I wrote a lot more that I didn't read. It felt good to write it out, and I felt like I let go of some of the feelings that I was having about it. And then it felt good to process it as I was writing it, and kind of walking through the awareness wheel. It helped a lot to process it and share about it. And overall, I think it was a really good experience. I'm not very computer illiterate, so it took me hours to figure out how to do this part. And I still have to upload it somehow, but I'm working on it. Anyway, it was a great experience.